one. A contract is an agreement between two or more legally competent persons that gives rise to legal rights and obligations. Now, every contract gives rise to legal rights and obligations. Every contract creates legal rights and obligations for the parties, so that, listen carefully, under a contract, one person's rights translates into the other party's obligations, and the other party's obligations translate into the other party's rights. Does it make sense? In contract law, one party's rights are the obligations of the other party, and the other party's obligations are the rights of the other party. Is it confusing? Now look at it this way. I am entering into contract to buy your car. So my obligation is to pay the money, and my right is to have the car. Does it make sense? Now, the other parties, the seller's obligation is to give me the car, which is my right. And the seller's right is to have my money, which is my obligation. I'm teaching, so listen carefully. Should I go again? In contract law, the rights of one party are the obligations of another party. So let's take a seller and a buyer situation. One person is selling a car, the other is buying the car. So the seller's obligation, the seller's primary obligation is to deliver the car to the buyer. And the seller's right is to have the money paid to him. Doesn't make sense? Now let's go to the buyer. The buyer's obligation is to pay the money, and the buyer's right is to get the car. So when you come to the buyer, his right is the seller's obligation. When you come to the seller, his right is the buyer's obligation. And when you come to the buyer, his obligation is the seller's right. And when you come to the seller, his obligation is the buyer's right. Please, does it make sense? I'm teaching. I'm teaching.